Hello, you are watching the pivot table tutorial. This works in Microsoft Excel 2003, 2007, and I'm using Microsoft Excel 2010. Um, Today I'm going to tell you about a few different functionalities of the pivot tool. This video is designed for someone that's either a beginner or not very familiar with the pivot tool. You might be very familiar with Excel, but the pivot tool is particularly useful and somewhat challenging to work with if you haven't used it before. So I'm going to walk you through that today. So you can see that I've got 5 different columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got your company, your month of sale, the customer, item number, and then the number of items sold. And so, this is a standard data set. I've got about, 500 lines or so broken up into different companies and months and customers. So any corporation or business would have something like this to track, or would hopefully have something like this to track how many items am I selling to which customers, which item am I selling, etc. This is a very simplified version, but I think you'll get the concept. So here in 2010, and it's also in 2007, you've got your ribbon bar here, and under Insert, you see Pivot Table here on the left. So when you've got a real nice set of data like this, where it's just 5 columns, a bunch of rows, Excel makes it easy, and when you click the pivot table button, it automatically highlights everything here. If you didn't have a real nice set of data, say for example you had 3 different sets of data on the same worksheet, this would be blank, and so you'd have to select the data that you want to go with manually. So it asks, choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed, and your options are either a new worksheet, which would be another tab down here, or an existing worksheet. So today we're going to use a new worksheet. And so now it creates a new sheet, and it gives you this little pivot table window. You'll see that if you click off it, that piece on the right disappears. So when you click on it, it appears. You're actually able to, if you want, you can pull this out and move it close, but for now we'll just leave it on the right hand side. So you see we've got all the different fields that we had in the original spreadsheet are listed here in the pivot table field list. So we've got company, month of sale, customer, item, and number sold. And then down below we've got report filter, column labels, row labels, and values. And I'll go through each one of these individually here in a moment. So a pivot table's use is essentially to take a large set of data and simplify it so that you can very quickly and easily modify it and do different things. Imagine how difficult it would be for, let's say I asked you to take this data and say how many items from January that Marlon Brando bought that were this item number from this company, how many items was there? Is it possible? Of course it's possible. It's, you'd have to filter and do different things, and it's a very manual process. Whereas with a pivot table, it's a relatively automated process. So like I said, you've got your 4 boxes down here, and the model here is you can drag things from up here to the boxes down here. So I'll show you here. So we've got row labels. This is where we're going to start, and where I would suggest you start. It's kind of the beginning of the logical piece of the pivot table. So we'll drag company into row labels and let go. So you'll see that on the left here it's given us, instead of having 450 lines with repeating ABCs and repeating LEDs and XYZs, it's given us just 5 lines, 1 for each company. So this is kind of, you're starting to see the power of the pivot table. If I had 1,000 different companies or 100 different companies, I'd see 100 different rows here. And so that'll be our rows for now. The next box to the right of that is called values. And for values, really the only field that makes sense is number sold. So we want to say, how many did we sell to this company in a certain month is really the question. So we'll drag the number sold down here. You'll see that it should populate, and it did, sum of numbers sold. So to XYZ Federal, we sold 17,000. To Hewlett Packard, we sold a few. already you're seeing kind of how we can manipulate the data very, very easily just by dragging things around here on the right. Excel does a really nice job of helping the user do things like this. You just need to know what to look for, is what I've found. So the next piece, and really where pivot tables truly shine and truly are valuable, is this piece called report filter. So for example, if we put month of sale in report filter, now you see this filter comes up at the top. And so we can say, this is great that we know how many sold in the year, but how about how many sold in December? Wow, so we're able to see in December we sold to 3 companies and this many to each. Now you can even dive deeper than that. The 4th box here is called column labels. And so if we drag customer over column labels, now we can see which customer bought how many items from which supplier or which vendor. And then it gives us a grand total, and we can change all of our filters and do things like that. But wow, what a powerful tool this is. You can see that a pivot table, putting something like this together, this could take months, or this could take an hour, to put all this together and say, okay, Kirk Douglas bought a certain amount in what months from what company, and then put all this together and manually go through. There are only 450 lines here. Imagine if your database had 450,000 lines. Pivot tables are a very powerful tool. This is just kind of a very scratching the surface introductory look at it, and I'll be posting some more advanced videos shortly.